Gentlemen, what is going on today? My name is Ryan Mickler. I'm the host and the founder of the Order of Man podcast. And of course, this movement that's been going for, well, nearly 7 years now. I want to first and foremost, thank you for joining us, whether you're here for the past 7 years or 7 hours or 7 minutes, more like 7 seconds. Regardless, we're glad you're here. Guys, it's my mission to reclaim and restore masculinity to a time and a place when men were men. People in society appreciated it, and we were strong and bold and courageous and willing to do what needed to be done to ensure our own way of life and the way of life for the people that we love and care about. I do see some resurgence of masculinity in society today, and that's good because obviously there's a whole lot of problems, a whole slew of problems that we have to deal with. But I'm not going to actually talk with you about that today, because you know what it is. And every other podcast out there is talking about all the problems and challenges. And you can jump on social media as easily as I can and see how horrible everything is and why the world around us is crumbling. And some of that is actually true. But what I want to talk about with you today is some threats that reside inside of you, things that are entirely within your control, that might expose you or make you vulnerable to some real obstacles and challenges and growth and success and progress in your life and the lives of the people that you care about. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Before I do, I want to mention really quickly that we have a big drawing taking place right now. What we're doing is we're looking for iTunes rating and reviews. A lot of you guys have left those ratings and reviews, and I really appreciate that. That goes a very long way in promoting what we're doing here. And of course, this is a grassroots movement. I haven't poured a bunch of money into advertising and doing all that kind of thing. I don't bring on a bunch of sponsors and things like that and a bunch of nonsense that you guys aren't interested in. But I would ask for some help because I don't do that. We're trying to grow this in a grass movement type way, and we've done very good up to this point. But guys, what we're looking for right now is for you to leave a rating and review on iTunes. That's it. That's a very simple thing for you to do. It might seem so simple that you're like, it's not a big deal. It's a big deal if 10,000 of you do it. And so I'm going to bribe you in a bit of a way. Hopefully you'll go on and leave that rating and review. The giveaway is this. I'm giving away a signed copy of my latest book, my last book, I should say. The newest one's coming out later this year, but my last book, Sovereignty, The Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Men. I'm giving away a brand new Montana Knife Company MagnaCut stainless steel Speed Goat knife, 100% made in America. I'm giving away a brand new pair of 100% made and sourced in America Origin boots and the Origin heavy hoodie, one that's not even been released to the public yet, by the way, the OD green version. And I'm also giving away a set of 50-pound Sorenex, 100% made and sourced in America center mass bells for one lucky winner at the end of this month. All you need to do is leave that iTunes rating and review, take a screenshot of it, and email Brandy, BRANDY at orderofman.com, and you will be entered into the drawing. Again, signed copy of Sovereignty, the MagnaCut stainless steel Speed Goat knife, Origin boots, Origin heavy hoodie that has not yet been released to the public, and also a pair of 50-pound center mass bells from Sorenex. Thanks to those companies and people who support what we're doing here. That's it. All right, go do it. You know what you need to do. Let's get into the conversation. Again, these are not external threats to your own well-being, and there are plenty. We'll talk about some of them. We have talked about some of them. But what I'm talking about today is the internal threats that we need to deal with first, because the more that a greater amount of us deal with the internal threats, the external threats begin to take care of themselves, because we're going to be bold and courageous and motivated and driving towards creating solutions and being men of honor and strength. So those external threats will begin to work themselves out because we're taking care of ourselves internally. So I've got 5 things I want to share with you today. Number 1, the first, and I think probably the most important threat to deal with, is your own ego. And when I say your own ego, I don't want it to feel like I'm pointing fingers. Guys, the things I say are just as much for me as they are for anybody else. My ego gets in the way. I create problems that don't need to exist. I get defensive. I tend to take offense faster than I need to. And that's a problem. It's a problem for me and it's a problem for you. And the more that you can learn to let go of being offended, let go of taking offense to everything, let go of the need and the desire to be right all the time, and instead humble yourself enough to learn from credible and qualified people and to take things to heart that are intended to do you good, the better off you're going to be. Now, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot on this subject lately is that it's very easy for us to interpret something that somebody might say as negative critique or hostility, or as popular culture would say it, a microaggression. It might not be any of that, actually. It might be that somebody just isn't that great at communication. And we all struggle with communication from time to time. And one little effort I'm being conscious of and aware of is trying to evaluate and analyze what somebody is saying, the message that they're trying to convey, and placing more weight and emphasis on that rather than how they deliver it. Because we all suck at delivery from time to time. Guys, it's very, very important that you drop the ego, that you drop the pride, that you let go of the need to be right, that you let go of the need to look like an expert all the time, that you're willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, and that you're willing to be a novice, and you're willing to try new things, and you're willing to be open and receptive to new ideas and thoughts that may threaten your current way of doing things. Again, I'm not pointing fingers at you as much as I'm pointing fingers at myself. This is something I need to work on, and I acknowledge that my ego has a way of becoming my own worst enemy. Number two, a great threat here is complacency. We live in a relative ease of modernity. Things are pretty comfortable. Things are pretty easy. You want food, you go to the grocery store. You want to turn up the heat, you turn up the heat on the thermostat in your house. In fact, I've got a little heater. You can't see it. It's just literally right down here because I like to be warm. And so I turn this little heater on right by my desk when I do my work in the middle of winter in Maine because I want to be warm. And that's a nice little creature comfort. But at times, these types of things make us complacent. They make life so easy. There's no challenges. There's no hardship. There's no struggle. Now, I realize that some of you may be struggling with finances or a relationship or some of these things. And I respect that. I acknowledge that. But also, you're not going to die. You know, the odds of you dealing with a violent encounter, or the odds of you having to fight for your life, or the odds of you starving to death are infinitesimally small compared to what they used to be 100, 500, 1,000 years ago. And so it's very easy for us to get in this default mode, this coasting mode. And I think this is something that high achievers tend to fall into as well. I've done fairly well for myself and what we've created here with Order of Man over the past 7 years now. And it's easy for me to think that I have it all figured out. And because I quote unquote have it all figured out, well, you know, there's nothing else for me to learn. And I've figured out the formula for success and satisfaction and fulfillment in my life. And, you know, as soon as I start to live by that, I start to slip. There's no cruise control. You can't just set your life on cruise control and hope that you're going to maintain the status quo. It's been said that you're always going to get out ahead or you're always going to fall behind, but there's no neutral. So you're either slipping or you're growing. Which one is it? And if you've had success in your life, then complacency is easy to fall into. By the way, if you have not had success in your life, complacency is also easy to fall into. You might resign yourself to your current standard of living. You might resign yourself to saying, this is just the way it is. This is the status quo. This is my lot in life. This is the hand I was dealt. And so you throw up your hands and you pretend like there's nothing you can do about it. Well, there is. I guarantee you there is. And I know that because there was something I could do about it. And I didn't come from a rich and wealthy family. I don't have any more talent or skill than any one of you. I've developed some skills over the past 7 years that have helped me achieve the level of success that I have but that isn't something that was naturally granted or afforded to me. Those are things that I worked my tail off for to improve in my own life. And if I can do it, you certainly can do it. You certainly, with 100% certainty and not a doubt in my mind, can absolutely do what it is you want to do. But you got to get out of this place of complacency. You can't be satisfied with where you are, and you got to be willing to do the work. And if you're on the other side of that, meaning that you've had a lot of success in your life, congratulations. Keep going. Don't stop. Don't rely on what you've done. It's been said that what got you here won't get you there. That's true in my experience. That you're going to need to try something different if you want to reach a new height. You want to reach new elevations. Number 3, conformity. Conformity is a great risk, right? Everybody wants you to conform. They all want you to do it their way. They all want you to see it the way that you see it. They want you to do it the way that you want it to be done. And, within reason, we should conform to some degree, assimilate, right? We should assimilate to the culture. We should respect those that we're trying to be around. But at the same time, how boring would it be if we were all the same, if we believed the same and we said the same and we acted the same? And I'll tell you what, the reason that we've had enough success with Order of Man to not only take this full time, but to create a life that I didn't know 5, 6, 7 years ago was possible is because I decided that I wasn't going to conform, that I wasn't going to say things the way that everybody else did, that I wasn't going to worry about people being offended or upset about the words that I was using and the message that I was sharing. And I was going to share it my own way. And even to this day, and it won't stop, by the way, I have people openly criticize and mock and ridicule what we're doing and why we're doing it. Now, look, I try to take that for what it's worth. Again, that goes back to maybe it's just poor delivery, but some people just despise it. But I refuse to conform to other people's way of doing things. Now, if it's somebody I respect, somebody I admire, somebody that I can learn from, somebody that I can grow from, somebody I've hired to train or coach or mentor me, that's one thing. But I'm talking about the public court of opinion that says, well, oh, you can't say that, and you can't talk about this, and you shouldn't address that, and you shouldn't do this, and you're a misogynist, and you're a sexist, and you're a homophobe, and like all these things that people say. You can say those things. I know who I am inside, but I'm not going to conform. I'm not going to be boring. I'm not going to be mundane. I'm not going to say it the way that you say it. I'm completely comfortable with who I am. Are you? I don't know, but I want you to be. I want to give you permission, and you don't need that, by the way, but I want to give you permission or a reason to be yourself fully. We look around at these people on social media and we think, oh, well, I want to be just like Jocko, or I want to be just like Andy Frisella, or I want to be like Goggins, or I want to be like Cam Hanes. And make no mistake, there's some very redeeming qualities about those men. In a lot of ways, I admire and respect those men. I've talked with every single one of those guys individually and personally, and I can tell you there's a lot to respect. But I don't want to be them. I don't want to say everything like they say. I don't want to do everything they do. I have my own dreams and desires. I have my own lens in which I look at life through. And I'm not going to water down my message, and I'm not going to water down who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am so I can get your validation or anybody else's. And ironically, the more that you water down who you are to try to conform, the less influence, the less likable you actually are, because people see right through it. But the more you stand on your own 2 feet, the more you plant your flag, the more you talk about the things that you want to talk about, the more quirks and weirdness and oddities that you have that you fully embrace and you begin to share, the more likable you become to the right people. Not everybody. There's not a single soul on earth who's liked by everybody. You take Jesus Christ, for example, who was the greatest man to ever walk the earth, and yet he's hated. He's one of the most widely hated people in all of history. Okay, so you could be doing and saying all the right things and you're still going to get hate. You could be doing and saying all the wrong things and you're still going to get hate. So you might as well do it your way and not conform and not be boring and not be mundane and not be the clone of whoever it is that you think you want to emulate. Number 4, guys, communication. This is a risk, or I should say lack thereof. Your lack of ability to communicate effectively. It's your inability to communicate with the people that you love. It's your inability to communicate when things are rubbing you the wrong way. You know, I've had some very serious conversations with men inside of our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council, over the past couple of days. And, you know, I've been tempted to not share some things and not bring up a discussion because I know how it's going to go. But you know what? That's what men do. They communicate effectively and they have these conversations and they address things assertively, not necessarily aggressively, but certainly not passively, but they're assertive about it. They're willing to have hard conversations. They're willing to have tough discussions. They're willing to share what's on their mind. They're willing to communicate with other people. Are you willing to do that? Because if you're not, I can almost guarantee that you're not getting your way. And it is important for you to get your way, not at the expense of other people, but man, you have dreams and desires and goals and objectives and ambitions and things you want to accomplish and missions you want to pursue and fulfillment that you want to find. And if you can't open your mouth about that and you can't communicate that and cast vision to other people, your wife, your kids, your colleagues, your coworkers, your neighbors, people in your circle, you're not going to fully live the life that you're meant to live. And I understand it's scary. You know, there's a real risk every time you open your mouth. I've done, I think, 850 plus episodes of this podcast at this point. And every time I open my mouth, there's a risk that I'm going to say something that somebody else doesn't agree with. There's also a risk I'm going to say something I actually don't believe. Because sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm just thinking out loud. And then I say something dumb because our minds are all over the place. And I don't catch it till later, or somebody else calls me on it. And there's a risk associated with that. But I'm okay with that. I need to be willing to accept that risk in order to achieve what I want to achieve. Because the last thing I want is to be somebody who sits on the sidelines and doesn't share their perspective and doesn't share their opinion and doesn't share what they want or doesn't share what's bothering them. And then everybody else gets what they want at my expense. I want to be part of that game. I don't want to get at their expense. I don't want them to get at my expense. I want us all to win. As it's been said, a rising tide lifts all boats. I want everybody to win. And in order to do that, I'm going to need to communicate with my wife, with my children, with my coworkers, with my clients. When things are on my mind, I'm going to communicate them. You need to communicate them as well. And you need to learn how to do that and have hard conversations and difficult discussions. And it's hard at first, but it gets easier because you realize it's not as hard as you're making it out to be. And the last point that I want to share with you guys, and this one has to be reiterated over and over again. Set your boundaries, gentlemen. Set your boundaries, because the risk is that you don't have any boundaries in place. And you let everybody walk all over you, and you don't know what you want, and you don't know what you're after, and you don't know what you'll tolerate or what you won't tolerate. And then everybody will railroad you and walk all over you and treat you like garbage, not out of malicious intent for the most part, but because they're self-absorbed, just like we all are. So you need to speak up, like I just said, and you need to establish the boundaries. Here's what I want. Here's what I'm willing to tolerate. Here's what I'm not willing to tolerate. Here's how I expect to be treated. If you don't treat me that way, here's what I do. Here's how I handle this. Like I just said, I had a couple of conversations with some men in the Iron Council, and these are the kind of conversations that we had on both parts, on both sides of the equation. I shared my perspective. Other people shared their perspective, and there was a mutual level of respect. And I understand boundaries for them better. They understand boundaries for me better. And we're all better off for it. No hate, no hostility, no animosity, because we have the balls to A, have the conversation, and B, maybe even before A, if that was possibility, is that we know what our boundaries are. We know how we're going to be treated. We know what to expect, and we communicate those things. And when we fail to communicate those things, like we often do, we go back and we communicate them, and then we uphold them. Right? So if you have a boundary with your wife about the way that she's going to treat you or talk to you, and I do, by the way, and she does as well, and she's called me on it, then I need to communicate, hey, this is how I expect to be treated, and you're not treating me the way that I expect to be treated. That's communication. That's setting the boundary. Okay, then so you communicate, you set it, you communicate it with her or him or whoever it is, and then you uphold it. When somebody steps over the line, then you uphold it. Hey, I told you, this is not how this is going to go down. I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate what you're bringing to the table. I appreciate your concern, but this is the way that you're going to bring it up with me. And if you're not going to bring it up with me like this, then we're not going to have this discussion. That's how a man upholds his boundaries. It's not comfortable. It's not easy when you start. It gets easier because you take pride in being somebody worth being respected. And you know what? Also, people respect you more if you do it with tact. Like, you don't have to be a dick about it. But if you do it with tact, you communicate a boundary and uphold that boundary with tact, people respect that more. And you walk away with an elevated level of influence, not an undermined level of influence. Guys, we could go on and on all day about all the internal threats that you're experiencing that might keep you from doing what you want to do. But I think this list pretty well encapsulates just about 90% of our problems. This is the low-hanging fruit, and it's also the fruit that's going to move the needle the furthest. I want you to win. I want you to thrive. I want you to lead your families. I want you to lead yourself. I want you to start businesses. I want you to lose weight. I want you to communicate with your families. I want you to have influence with other people. I want you to move the needle in the right direction. I want you to accomplish your goals and desires and objectives. I want all of that for you. And I don't want you to become your own worst enemy, as we all do. Yes, external threats face us. You know what they are. We deal with them every day. You're constantly bombarded with those things. And I'm not trying to dismiss them. They're important. In fact, we'll probably do a podcast on some of those external threats. But for now, let's deal with the things that we can absolutely 100% control. And that's the internal threats. Number one, your ego. Number two, your level of complacency. Number three, your conformity with what everybody else says, what you should be doing and why you should be doing it. Number four, your communication or lack thereof. And then number five, your boundaries, or again, your lack thereof. Establish these things, address these things, improve in these departments, and I guarantee that your life will get better on every front. Ego, complacency, conformity, communication, and boundaries. I hope that helps, guys. Remember, as we sign off today, that we've got the rating and review drawing at the end of this month, February 28th. We're giving away a signed copy of Sovereignty. We're giving away the brand new Montana Knife Company Magna Cut stainless steel Speed Goat knife. We're giving away a brand new pair of Origin boots and the heavy hoodie that has not yet been released to the public. And we're also giving away a pair of 50-pound center mass bells from my friends over at Sorinex. You got to leave an iTunes rating and review, not Google, not Android, not Spotify, not iHeartRadio, not Pandora. We're doing an iTunes rating and review right now. Then take a screenshot of that rating and review, email it to Brandy, BRANDY at orderofman.com, and you are automatically entered. That's all I've got for you today, guys. We'll be back next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.